Good morning. It is October 31st, and there is going to be a freeze this week. A nice late freeze. So we're going to take one last look around the garden for the season, as all of this will likely not be here next week, except for some of the cold hardy stuff. On our front arch, I still have some cherry tomatoes growing. This was a overgrown success this year. Really like the cherry tomatoes on the arch. It's really cool. Let's see, it's just neat. So you come through. Let's take a look over here. So the kale is still doing real well, and that'll survive the frost. I've got some Ragged Jack and some dinosaur kale. It's still doing pretty well. My little sour gherkin cucumbers are still producing. Look at that. It's October and I still have these. I've been pulling these off and making pickles. This big guy here is a hollyhock, I think. I gotta look that up, but if it is, then it will make flowers next year, which is cool. We had such trouble this year with groundhogs that a lot of stuff is spent, but a lot of stuff just didn't quite work the same way it did last year. A lot of good lettuce and stuff in this pot, and still some snap peas. They're loving the cool fall weather, and they're so good. Let's see, mint just taking over here. And I do have some Brussels sprout plants. They just kept getting eaten, so they're just a little behind what I would want. I don't know whether they will grow their little sprouts this year. I don't see any sprouts. So they may be a wash. That little bed, I had potatoes, do more potatoes next year. Here I had leeks, way too many leeks, couldn't eat them all, froze a lot. Maybe I'll do some next year. We'll see. One little tiny sad watermelon that never really got ripe. Lots of overgrown tomatillos. Not doing tomatillos next year. They just go crazy and I can't quite manage them. Let's see, peppers looking still pretty good. They keep pumping out peppers, hot peppers. I've just made a lot of jam, a lot of salsa. We'll do it again next year. It was great. Let's see what's going on over here. Pretty flowers. Beautiful sage plant that just went crazy. This is where I had all my tomatoes. They're all basically done. A couple just hanging on, but Persian basil, pretty. I probably won't plant as much of it next year, maybe one plant. This is pretty, but I can't figure out a use for it. It's sort of a licorice flavor. Maybe I could make some tea from it. Yeah, I mean, it's a very pretty smelling, like licorice smelling, and it's very pretty, but you know, it takes over the garden. I'll probably just grow it as an ornamental next year. This bed was a bit of a wash. The groundhog and the things kept eating all of our lettuces, which we had here, but the evergreen scallions back there are looking great. Beautiful zinnias. I'm gonna come out and like cut, since we've got a frost coming, I'm gonna cut a lot of these, especially the ones that seem close to done, like maybe like that one, and continue to harvest zinnia seeds. Look, I've got these beautiful broccoli. Isn't that pretty? Let's see if you can get it. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you can be our lunch today. You look pretty. Probably pretty tasty. Oh, and these just delightful. Huge, huge, beautiful zinnias. Let's see if I can get some. I mean, they're just really lovely. Very tall. Thriving. Let's see over here. More beautiful zinnias. I'm gonna get all these zinnias, grab the seeds, plant a bunch more zinnias next year. I love them. They're so pretty. This thing is gonna eventually be like an entire zinnia garden at this rate. So here, these sort of heart-shaped vines are sweet potato vines, actually. And I have not dug up the soil to see if we have sweet potatoes to harvest. We probably do. Just have to come out and dig and see if they're there. That would be cool. We just haven't gotten out to the garden very recently. It's been a bit of a wash. But there you go. It's pretty, huh? There's really not a lot to talk about over here because all the like ground cherries and the tomatillos just took over this area, and I don't know what to do with tomatillos, so there's too many and they're unruly. They just like really grew like everywhere. So maybe next year I won't do tomatillos. They were fun, but maybe not next year. Take a break. And then this bed was some squash. Hold on. I was gonna say there isn't any now, but this plant looks like it's got something. I don't know if it's grown any squash, but it looks like it's growing some flowers. Poor little plant. It's not gonna make it past this week. But I appreciate the flower. Appreciate the effort. Sorry for the spinning. Okay. This bed we had garlic in and then tried a few other things, but I don't think anything really took off. We had a big storm and a lot of branches came down and just like destroyed the fence. A lot of branches throughout the yard. It was fine though. Just some old branches from the trees came down. So the grapevine is about to go dormant. And I'll be able to, this is its second year, I'll be able to see, yeah, I can sort of see now, I'll be able to see the branches. And I'm gonna cut it back to the trunk and the main stem, etc., that I want, that's gonna arch all the way over this arch. That'll be cool. And then back in the back, I still do have some tomatoes growing. Those are pink ping pong tomatoes. Very good saladette. And I still back here have some cool like gourd stuff. Like there's a pumpkin growing. Probably have to pull that in because the frost is coming. Let's see what else is under here. I mean, it's still, things are still trying to grow here in very late October, very end of October. We've still got good things. We got this guy growing up here. Let's see if I can get a view of it. Yeah. There he is. A pumpkin growing on my like arch trellis back here. Pretty cool. So about done. About done for the year. One little sad tomato. So some of the tomatoes I liked and some I did not. So the ones that are like very ribbed and I don't know, like these, I don't know if I can see. Some of them, they didn't do great. They don't last very long once they're picked. They don't have a very long window in which you have to pick them. And they're just not as good as some of the others. So I really have some favorites. Next year we're gonna do more of the favorites and fewer of the experimentals. This is actually one of my favorites. These don't look great because they're just the last little stragglies. That's called Marzano Fire, which might be my favorite one for making sauces. And I really like Cherokee Purple for eating fresh. There are a couple other real winners this year. So yep. So here is the garden before the last freeze, or the first freeze of the fall. It's been a slightly disappointing year because we kept getting attacked by the groundhogs and we just kept losing all of our stuff that we'd planted. But look, I mean, nature did its thing anyway. And it sure is pretty, especially against the fall, you know, leaves. So, you know, not too bad. So there you go, that's the garden.